Now, I'm gonna tell you something that don't appear on any map no more. That's by design, you understand. The kind of design that happens when a whole community agrees, without ever saying a word, that some places are better left forgotten. Omen Creek, they call it. Omen Creek, if you were born and raised in those hollers. Little settlement nestled in the crook of Blackwood Ridge, right there where the mountains fold in on themselves like old hands praying. It was there, I reckon, for near about 200 years. Families with names like Kellum and Thorne and Wickham. Then, one Tuesday in October of 1974, it wasn't on the maps no more. Just gone. The county records got misplaced. The highway commission's got no record of any road leading that direction. And the families that used to live there, well, some of them left. Some of them didn't have much choice in the matter. But the store, the general store, stayed. I heard the glass clinking before I knew what it was. That's the thing about that place. Sounds don't come from where you expect them to. A wind chime, maybe, or bottles knocking together. But out there, in the deep dark of those mountains, there's no glass that ought to be clinking. There's just the wind and the rain and the stones that been waiting in the earth since before anybody named this holler. There's a moment I want to tell you about. Happened to a fella named Carson Rhett, though that weren't his real name neither. All the names start to blur out there. But this Carson, he came through in the rain, same as they all do. And he saw it at the end, right there on the shelf between the mason jars full of, well, we'll get to that. He saw a jar with his own name on it, fancy writing in careful script. And inside, just the faintest shimmer, like light caught in amber, like time caught in glass. His hands was shaking when he reached for it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves now. That's the trouble with stories from this place. They end before they begin, and begin after they're already finished. So let me start you down the mountain road, slow and careful, and we'll see where we end up together. The rain come down in the way it only comes down in the mountains. Not hard, understand, not like a storm that announces itself. This was the kind of rain that seems to be there all the time. Like the very air decided to get damp. Soft, persistent. The kind that'll soak you through if you're not careful. Because you don't quite notice it's happening till you're already wet to the bone. The car was a Buick, dark-colored, maybe 70s or 80s model. Ran pretty good on the highway, but once you got off the main road and started up into the ridge country, well, that's when older vehicles start to remember their age. The headlights cut through the rain in two pale cones, and the fog was thick enough that you'd swear you could touch it. Mile markers disappeared. Road signs seemed to turn themselves around. The highway got narrower, and the trees pressed in closer, their branches reaching across the asphalt like they was trying to embrace the car, to pull it into the forest proper. The sound of the engine was steady for a long time. Rain, engine, the squeaky rhythm of the windshield wipers, back and forth, back and forth. Hypnotic in its way, the kind of sound that makes your eyelids heavy, makes you feel like the road and the rain and the darkness outside are all part of some slow, deliberate breathing. Then came the sound that shouldn't have come. Not sudden, nothing sudden about it. The engine just gave up, coughed twice, real gentle-like, and decided it was done. The car coasted to the shoulder, what there was of a shoulder, and rolled to a stop. When you turn off the engine out there in the mountains, you find out how quiet really is. The rain, it sounds louder without that mechanical hum underneath. It sounds almost like whispering. The darkness without the headlights, it seems to have weight. It seems to press against the windows. The radio, when it came on, was stuck between stations. Just static and a fragment of something that might have been voice, might have been music. Hard to tell what's what when everything's caught between one thing and another. The temperature was dropping. You could feel it in the car. Not bad yet, but going that direction. And there was something else. A smell on the wind, even inside the car with the windows rolled up. Like old water. Like things that grow in places that don't see much sun. Like copper and stone. The clock on the dashboard read 11:47 when the car gave up. Somehow that exact time stuck with whoever was sitting in that driver's seat. 11:47. Not quite midnight. Not quite the next day. Caught between. The road behind was just fog and nothing. The road ahead, same thing. But there had to be something ahead. There's always something ahead. That's what we tell ourselves. That's what keeps us walking toward the dark. The headlights of the car, still on, lit up the fog in a small circle. Just a few feet of visibility. The trees looked different in that light. Older somehow. More deliberate. The bark looked like skin, all wrinkled and marked with age. The branches looked like bone. And that's when the walker saw the light. Not from the car, a different light. Warm, like lamplight, coming from somewhere up the road. Maybe a quarter mile past the fog. The kind of light that looks like a home. The kind of light that looks like help. The rain was steady. The temperature was dropping. And the road was empty in both directions. So the walker started moving toward that light. Sometimes that's the only choice you get. The building appeared slow. That's the way of things in fog. You don't see a structure all at once. You see the outline first, black against the mist. Then, as you get closer, details start to come into focus. A porch, steps, a railing, a sign. The sign was old wood with faded lettering. General store. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would catch your attention if you was passing by on a highway. Kind of place you might have seen 100 times and never really noticed. The smell hit first. That's always how it is with old places. The smell comes before your eyes adjust. The smell comes before you understand what you're walking into. Cedar. Old, aged cedar. The kind that's been sitting in darkness for decades. The wood of the floorboards and the shelves and the walls. All of it bleeding out that particular scent. Sweet, but not pleasant. Sweet the way old things smell sweet, like they're slowly turning into something else. Kerosene. Someone kept a lamp burning somewhere in the back. Or maybe it was old kerosene in old containers. Residue of decades of lighting that didn't require electricity out here. And underneath it all, something else. Something like copper. Something like water that's been sitting too long. Something like the breath of caves. The air felt thick. Not quite cold, but not warm neither. The temperature that places get when they've been closed off from the sun for a long time. The temperature of basements, of tombs. The light came from oil lamps hung from the ceiling on chains. They cast shadows that seemed to move even though the flames were steady. The shadows fell across shelves that stretched from floor to ceiling. The walls of the store weren't painted wood. They was the shelves themselves, all the way around, like the forest had turned itself inside out. And this small wooden box was what remained. The counter was at the far end, and behind it was the proprietor. He was old. The kind of old where you can't quite figure how old. Could have been 70, could have been 170. His skin was the color of old leather, and it had the same quality. Thin, creased, like it had been folded 1,000 times and never quite smoothed out again. He was arranging jars on a shelf. Careful, deliberate movements. His left eye was natural enough. Brown, faded with age, but the right eye was glass. You could tell it by the way it didn't quite move with his head. When he looked at you, it took a moment for that glass eye to follow. It was darker than his real eye, almost black, and it didn't reflect the light quite right. It caught the lamplight and held it, like it was keeping something in. He didn't look up when the walker came in, just kept arranging those jars. His fingers was long, thin, with nails that grew in a yellow spiral at the tips. His hands moved like they was playing a song, each jar finding its place with precision. "Road trouble?" His voice come out like he was speaking from the back of a cave, deep but not loud. The kind of voice that makes you lean in close to hear it properly. "Car quit on me, up the road a ways." The walker's voice sounded wrong in that place. Too loud, too bright, like bringing electric light into a place that had learned to live with candles. The proprietor nodded, still didn't look up. "Happens. The ridge don't like having machines up here. Too much metal, too much noise. It gets into the mechanical parts, makes them forget what they're supposed to do. I need to use a phone, call a tow truck. Ain't got one." "A phone?" "Ain't got a tow truck neither, or the road that a tow truck would come down." Now he did look up. That glass eye swung toward the walker like a compass needle finding north, and the real eye followed a moment later. "You're gonna have to stay the night, I reckon. Rest up. Tomorrow the ridge might feel more inclined to let you leave." The walker looked back toward the door. Through the window there was nothing but fog and rain and darkness. "Where am I? What's the nearest town?" "You're in Omen Creek," the proprietor said, and something in the way he said it suggested that should mean something. When it didn't produce a response, he continued, "There's a room upstairs, clean sheets. Won't cost you nothing." The walker's hands was cold. The damp from the rain had worked its way in, and the warmth of the store wasn't quite enough to drive it out. There was nowhere else to go. No light on the road. No sign of any other building. Just this store, and this old man, and the fog pressing against the windows. "Thank you," the walker said. The proprietor smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was a smile that suggested he was remembering something funny that happened a long time ago. "Name's Emmett Thorne," he said. "Welcome to the general store. Make yourself comfortable. We got most things here. Most things you could ever want, really." He gestured toward the shelves. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, stretching back into the darkness, stretching up to the ceiling, all of them filled with jars. "Let me show you what we carry," Emmett said. The shelves were wood, dark with age and something else. Something that might have been dust or might have been accumulated time. The jars on 'em were glass, mason jars mostly, but some that looked older. Hand-blown glass with imperfections and waves in the transparency. They caught the lamplight in different ways, depending on their age and the thickness of the glass. And they were full of things, but not the things you'd expect to find in a general store. The proprietor moved slowly along the shelves, running his hand along the jars like he was saying hello to old friends. He began to speak, and his voice had taken on a different quality. It was still deep, but now it had rhythm to it. The rhythm of someone who's told a story so many times that the words have worn smooth grooves into his mind. "This here shelf," he said, indicating a section about waist high, running the length of the eastern wall, "is where we keep the morning sounds, the sounds of wakes. You hear that?" He picked up one jar. Inside there was nothing visible. No liquid, no object, no substance at all. Just clear glass and air. But when he held it up to his ear, his face changed. His expression softened. A tear might have run down his cheek, hard to tell in the lamplight. "That's from 1952. Tuesday morning. A woman standing on her porch in a holler just south of here, calling her children to breakfast. You could hear the love in her voice, the certainty, the way she knew, just knew, that they would come, that the world was as it should be." He set the jar down with reverence, picked up another. "This one's from 1968. A rooster crowing. Not just the sound, understand, but the feeling that accompanied it. That moment when the world transitions from night to day. That hope. That reset." The walker moved deeper into the store, drawn by the proprietor's voice, the rhythm of his speech. The shelves seemed to go back further than should have been possible, given the size of the building from the outside. The darkness got deeper as they moved, though the lamps kept pace somehow, appearing where they were needed, casting their orange glow across jars and jars and jars. "This shelf here," the proprietor continued, his voice taking on a mournful quality, "is the hardest one. This is where we keep the last sounds, the final breaths. You understand the difference between a normal breath and a final one? There's a quality to it, a resignation, a letting go. The jars on this shelf were darker glass, amber and deep brown. When the light hit them, they looked like they contained liquid, but it was only shadow. 1931. A man named Wickham died in his sleep, so there wasn't pain, just the last breath. The body recognizing that it was done. The mind letting go. It's in there. That exact moment. Preserved. He moved on and the walker followed. There were jars containing sounds of tears. Different kinds, he explained. The sharp, gasping tears of surprise. The slow, heavy tears of grief. The grateful tears of relief. He pointed out a section dedicated entirely to laughter. First laughs of infants. That sound ain't got no complicated emotion attached to it. Just pure wonder. Laughs at jokes. Laughs at the absurdity of being alive. Laughs right before something terrible happened. This is the part that fascinates most people, the proprietor said, stopping before a section that contained jars filled with what looked like fog or smoke caught in glass. These are the doubts, the moments right before a decision is made, when a person is standing at a crossroads and hasn't yet committed to a path. You can feel the possibility in these jars, the futures that didn't happen. The walker was getting tired. The warmth of the store, the rhythm of the proprietor's voice, the hypnotic quality of all these jars stretching on and on. 'Twas wearing down the resistance. The mind was getting foggy, the way it does when you're about to fall asleep. We got some real valuable ones, the proprietor continued. This here is the moment right before a woman said, I do. And this is the moment right before a man decided not to walk off that bridge. This is the sound of forgiveness being offered. This is the sound of forgiveness being accepted. He turned to face the walker, and both his eyes, the real one and the glass one, seemed to glow in the lamplight. What brings people out here to the creek mostly is that they're lost. They're between things, between homes, between identities, between the life they thought they was gonna have and the life they actually got. The ridge, it attracts them. The mountains know how to call to people like that. When someone gets lost out here, they end up at the store, just like you. They come in from the rain and the cold and the dark, and I offer 'em shelter. I offer 'em warmth. I offer 'em a place to stay the night. The walker's heart was beating faster now, not from fear exactly, but from understanding, from realizing that something was being revealed, something that had been happening all along. And in exchange, the proprietor said softly, I collect what they leave behind, the essence of 'em, the moment that made 'em unique, the sound they made that no one else could make, the breath they took that held their particular understanding of being alive. It don't hurt. It's not violent or painful. It's just a transaction. They go to sleep restful-like, and they don't wake up. Not exactly. They're still here, understand? In the jars, in the store, part of the collection. The walker tried to move toward the door, but the proprietor was there, not blocking the way, just standing in it. His glass eye gleamed, and the walker understood that it wasn't empty. It was full of something, full of all the things he'd collected, all the breaths and sounds and moments and doubts and laughs and sighs. Don't be afraid, Emmett said. Most people, by the end, they're grateful. Grateful to stop moving. Grateful to stop struggling. Grateful to become something permanent. Something that won't fade away. The rain stopped sometime in the night. Or maybe it never stopped at all. Maybe it's still falling out there on Omen Creek. Nobody's around to hear it anymore. The store stands where it's always stood. The fog never quite clears from the ridge. And Emmett Thorne, he continues his work, rang jars, adding to his collection, because the mountains still call to people who are lost. The road is always wet. Cars always break down in the same stretch of fog. And there's always someone who needs shelter from the dark. There's a new jar on the eastern shelf now, the one with the morning sounds. It's marked with careful, fancy script. Carson Rhett, October 17th, 1989. The moment he understood where he was. And the breath it contains is so faint, you'd have to listen for a long time to hear it. But it's there. The exact moment of recognition. The moment of giving up. The moment of becoming permanent. Just one jar among thousands. Just one among thousands. And the shelves are never quite full. There's always room for one more. Now, if this story found its way into your bones the way it was meant to, I'd be much obliged if you'd do a few things for us here. First, subscribe to this channel. Don't just pass by like a traveler on a dark road. Stay a while. There's more stories where this one come from. More tales from the hollers. More whispers from the ridge. The kind of stories that settle into your mind before you fall asleep and stay there in your dreams. And if this one about Emmett Thorne and his collection struck something deep in you, share it with someone you know. Pass it along like we do out here in the mountains. Word of mouth, one person to the next. Let 'em hear about Omen Creek. Let 'em wonder if that fog they seen on the road might have been more than just weather. Leave a comment, too, if you're willing. Tell us what you felt when you heard about those jars. Tell us if you ever seen a place that felt like it didn't quite belong to this world. Tell us your own stories from the mountains, your own encounters with the strange and the forgotten. These tales, they live on through sharing. They get stronger when folks pass 'em along. We're building something here. A collection, you might say. Not of jars and breaths and moments like Emmett keeps, but of stories, of community, of folks who understand that there's more to this world than what the daylight shows us. So subscribe, share, comment. Keep the tales alive. And maybe, just maybe, you'll sleep a little better knowing you're not alone out there in the dark. Until next time, friend, may your roads be clear, and may the ridge treat you kindly.